At 48, I found out that the sound of my own daughter's laughter, a sound I'd cherished for 22 years, could feel like a shard of glass in my heart. My name is Sarah Jenkins. I am a mother who raised a bright, ambitious business graduate, a young woman who now looks at me and sees a ghost from a life she'd rather forget. It happened on a Tuesday. I'd driven downtown to her sleek new apartment, a place of chrome and glass that felt as foreign to me as the moon. I held a small, clumsily wrapped present in my hands, a book on local bird life I thought she'd enjoy. My birthday was the next day, and she'd insisted on taking me out for a nice, civilized dinner. When I arrived, the door was slightly ajar. I heard her voice, light and tinkling, on a phone call. "Oh, just finalizing plans for my mom's birthday tomorrow," she said, and my heart warmed. "No, no, not at her place. God, no, we have to go somewhere quiet, somewhere she won't feel the need to tell war stories or stand like a soldier. You know how it is, it's just embarrassing." I froze. The word hung in the air, sharp and final. Embarrassing. The floor beneath my feet, solid a moment before, seemed to tilt. I took a silent step back, leaving the gift leaning against her doorframe, and walked away. I drove home in a silence so profound it roared in my ears. My name is Sarah Jenkins. For 22 years, my entire world was my daughter, Chloe. Her father, my beloved Mark, a good and gentle man, was taken from us by a sudden illness when Chloe was just a baby. I was left alone, a young widow with a child to raise and a heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. Before Chloe, before Mark, there was another me. Her name was Sergeant Sarah Storm Walsh. I served 8 years in the Army with 2 tours in a dusty, sun-scorched country far from here. I wasn't a desk clerk. I was military police. I learned to handle a rifle, to subdue a person twice my size, to read a crowd for threat indicators, and to push my body and mind past limits I never knew I had. I learned to be hard, to be sharp, because softness in that place could get you killed. When Mark died, the soldier in me knew what to do. Grief was a luxury I couldn't afford. I had a mission, Chloe. I packed away my uniforms, my medals, the photographs of my crew-cut, stern-faced younger self. I buried Sarah Storm Walsh in a box in the attic and became just mom. I took a job as a security manager for a local warehouse, steady hours, good benefits. I learned to bake cookies, to braid hair, to soothe nightmares. I thought that by hiding the soldier, I was giving my daughter a normal, soft, safe life. I never realized that in her eyes I had just become boring, unremarkable, embarrassing. That night, after hearing Chloe's words, I didn't cry. Soldiers don't cry. A cold, familiar calm settled over me, the same focus I used to feel before a patrol. The hurt was there, a deep, aching wound, but it was being processed by a part of my brain I had shut down for decades. I went up to the attic. The air was thick with dust and memories. I found the old footlocker. Inside, beneath a folded flag and a stack of letters from Mark, was my old training manual on close-quarters combat. The pages were yellowed, but the knowledge was still there, etched into my muscle memory. I sat on the dusty floor and read it until the sun came up. The next day was my birthday. Chloe called, her voice bright and false. "Mom, I saw the book. You shouldn't have. I've made reservations for 7 at La Belle Epoque." It was the fanciest restaurant in the city. "That sounds wonderful, sweetie," I said, my voice even. I felt like an actor in a play. "Great, wear that nice blue dress, okay?" I hung up and looked at my reflection. The nice blue dress hung in my closet. Next to it in the attic trunk was my old Army-issue physical training gear, a gray t-shirt and shorts, now tighter than they used to be, and a pair of worn but solid combat boots. A plan, cold and precise, began to form in my mind. It wasn't a plan for revenge against Chloe. It was a test for me. I decided to walk to the restaurant. It was a long walk, nearly an hour, through a part of town that had grown rougher over the years. People said you shouldn't walk there alone, especially not at dusk. But the old me, Sarah Storm, had walked through far more dangerous places. I put on my sneakers, a simple pair of trousers, and a jacket. I put my phone, my ID, and a little cash for dinner into a small, functional purse, a relic from my old life, and slung it across my body. I left the blue dress hanging in the closet. The walk was a journey back in time. With every step, I shed the skin of mom. I noticed the way the shadows fell between the buildings. I noted the groups of young men loitering on corners, their postures speaking a language I still understood. I felt my posture straighten, my shoulders go back, my gaze become a scan instead of a glance. The fear I used to feel as just Sarah Jenkins was gone, replaced by a hyper-awareness. I was walking into my own past, both the one from the Army and the one from my childhood, in this very neighborhood. About 4 blocks from the restaurant, I had to cut through Tanner Park. It was a known trouble spot, but it was the most direct route. The sun had dipped below the skyline, casting long, deep shadows. The park was mostly empty, save for a group of 3 young men clustered around a bench near the central path. They were loud, their laughter aggressive and meant to be heard. I assessed them instantly. 2 were tall and lanky, all swagger and noise. The third, their obvious leader, was broader, with a coiled energy that reminded me of a cornered dog. I marked him as the primary threat. I kept walking, my pace steady and confident. I didn't look at them, but I watched them in my peripheral vision. I saw the moment they noticed me. The loud laughter died down. I heard a low whistle. "Hey, Grandma," one of the lanky ones called out. "You lost." I ignored him, my eyes fixed on the path ahead. My heart wasn't pounding with fear, it was beating a steady, ready rhythm. Breathe in, breathe out, assess, plan. The leader stepped onto the path, blocking my way. He couldn't have been more than 20. He had a cruel smile and empty eyes. "That's a nice bag," he said, his voice a low sneer. "What you got in there for us?" This was it, the inciting incident, not Chloe's words, but this moment. This was the conflict the old me was built for. "Nothing for you," I said, my voice low and surprisingly calm. "Step aside." He laughed, a harsh grating sound. "Or what you'll call the cops." He took a quick lurching step forward. In a flash his hand shot out and he grabbed the strap of my purse. He gave a brutal, sharp tug. The sturdy strap, designed for utility not fashion, held fast, but the force wrenched my shoulder, sending a spike of pain down my arm. He yanked again and the clasp at my side gave way. He stumbled back, my purse in his hand, his friends whooping with laughter. "Thanks for the donation, old lady," he crowed, waving my purse like a trophy. They were already turning away, thinking the show was over. They thought I was just another victim, another scared, helpless woman who would run away crying. But I didn't run. The pain in my shoulder was a familiar old friend. The laughter was a sound I'd heard before in a different desert from men with far more dangerous intentions. A switch flipped inside me. The last vestiges of Sarah Jenkins, the embarrassed mother, evaporated. Sarah Storm Walsh stood in her place. "Stop," the word came out not as a plea but a command. It was a tone that had made raw recruits flinch. The 3 of them turned, surprised. The leader smirked. "What did you say?" I took a step forward, my hands relaxed at my sides. I said, "Stop, put the purse down and walk away." My voice was ice. It was the voice I used when talking down a drunk, belligerent soldier. It was the voice that promised consequences. He laughed again, but it was less sure this time. "Or you'll do what? You're one old woman." "You have no idea," I said almost softly. "This is your only warning." This was my reaction, this was the decision. I was not going to be a victim, not today, not ever again. The leader's smirk vanished, replaced by anger at being challenged. He tossed the purse to one of his friends and took a fighting stance, his fists coming up. "I'm gonna teach you a lesson, you crazy bee." He never finished the word. He lunged, throwing a wild, telegraphed punch aimed at my face. It was the move of an amateur, all anger and no technique. Time seemed to slow down, my training took over. It wasn't a thought process, it was muscle memory. Assess, neutralize. I didn't back away, I moved in. As his punch sailed harmlessly past my head, I pivoted on my back foot. My left arm came up not to block but to control, hooking his extended arm and trapping it against my body. At the same time, my right leg swept behind his ankles. Using his own forward momentum against him, I executed a perfect, brutal reap. He crashed to the ground with a heavy, sickening thud, the air driven from his lungs in a loud whoosh. He lay there, stunned, gasping like a fish out of water. The laughter from his friends died instantly, replaced by shocked silence. I stood over him, my boot placed lightly but firmly on his wrist, pinning it to the pavement. "Stay down," I instructed, my voice still terrifyingly calm. The 2 others stared, their mouths agape. This was not in their script. The taller one, the one holding my purse, recovered first. Anger flared in his eyes. "You hurt Jake," he yelled, and he charged me. This was the climax, the turning point. He was faster than his leader, but just as sloppy. He came in low, trying to tackle me. I was ready. As he dove, I dropped my weight, wrapped my arms around his neck and one of his arms, and used his charge to spin us both. It was a basic hip throw. He flipped through the air and landed flat on his back with a force that made me wince. He didn't get up. The third one, the last of the trio, stood frozen. He looked from his two friends, one wheezing on the ground, the other moaning in pain, to me. The fear in his eyes was palpable. He was just a kid, a follower. I took a step toward him. I didn't say a word. I just looked at him, my eyes holding the storm of 2 lifetimes, the deserts of my youth and the heartbreak of yesterday. He flinched as if I'd struck him. His hands started to shake. Then he did something I didn't expect. He fell to his knees. "Please," he begged, his voice cracking. "Please don't hurt me. I'm sorry. We're sorry. We didn't know. Please." He was crying now, real tears of terror. He fumbled with my purse and held it out to me with trembling hands. "Take it. Just please let us go." I took my purse. I looked at the 3 of them, one pinned, one broken, one begging. The fire inside me cooled, leaving behind a hollow, weary ache. There was no triumph in this, only a grim, necessary conclusion. I took my foot off the leader's wrist. "Get up," I said. "Take your friends and get out of my sight. If I ever see you again, you'll regret it." He scrambled to his feet, clutching his chest. He and the crying one hauled their dazed friend upright, and without a backward glance, they half ran, half stumbled out of the park, disappearing into the gloom. The resolution was quiet. I stood alone in the park, the adrenaline slowly receding. I brushed the dirt from my trousers, my hands now starting to tremble with the aftershock. I slung my purse back over my shoulder and continued my walk to the restaurant as if nothing had happened. I was 10 minutes late. Chloe was waiting at the host's stand, tapping her foot impatiently. She was stunning in a little black dress. Her face fell when she saw me. "Mom, you're late, and what are you wearing? I told you the blue dress." Her voice was a sharp whisper of disappointment. I just looked at her. I saw the smudge of dirt on my jacket sleeve. I felt the raw power that still hummed in my veins. I saw my daughter, my beautiful, brilliant, embarrassed daughter, and I felt a profound sense of peace. "There was a delay," I said simply. We were seated at a pristine white tablecloth. The silverware gleamed. Chloe ordered for us, her voice tight. She spent the first 10 minutes complaining about my clothes and my lateness. I let her talk. I just listened, a small, knowing smile on my face. Finally, she paused, taking a sip of her water. "So what happened? Why are you so dirty?" I looked her directly in the eyes. The storm in me had settled, but the strength remained. "Some young men tried to take my purse in Tanner Park," I said, my voice matter of fact. Chloe's eyes went wide with horror. "Oh my God, Mom, are you okay? Did they hurt you? We need to call the police." She reached for her phone, her hands shaking. I placed my hand over hers, gently but firmly. It was the same hand that 20 minutes earlier had helped throw a man to the ground. "No, sweetie," I said, "they didn't hurt me." I paused, letting the words hang in the air between us. "I hurt them." She stared at me, utterly confused. What are you talking about?" "There were 3 of them," I continued, my tone as calm as if I were describing a recipe. "Their leader, a boy named Jake, is probably having trouble breathing right now. His friend will have a very sore back for a week. And the 3rd one, he begged for my forgiveness on his knees." Chloe's mouth was open. She was looking at me as if she were seeing me for the very first time. The mom who baked cookies was gone. In her place was someone else, someone unfamiliar, someone formidable. How could you possibly?" she stammered. "Before I was your mom, Chloe," I said, my voice soft but filled with a new, unshakable authority. "I was Sergeant Sarah Walsh, United States Army Military Police. They called me Storm. I spent 8 years learning how to handle men like that. I gave all that up for you. I became just Mom because I thought that's what you needed. I thought it would keep you safe. I never knew that the person you needed protection from the most was the person I used to be." Tears welled in her eyes, but they weren't tears of pity or fear. They were tears of sudden, shocking understanding. She looked at my hands, at the set of my shoulders, at the look in my eyes that had seen things she could never imagine. "You are a soldier," she whispered. "I was," I said. "I am. It's a part of me, Chloe. It always has been. And it's not something to be embarrassed about. It's the reason I was able to walk here tonight. It's the reason I can sit here unharmed having dinner with you." She was silent for a long time, just staring at me. The fancy restaurant, the other diners, the nice, civilized dinner, it all faded away. There was only this new truth between us. "I'm so sorry, Mom," she finally said, her voice thick with emotion. "I didn't know, I just saw you as my mom. I was stupid." No, I said, reaching across the table to take her hand. You weren't stupid. I never gave you the whole picture. I hid that part of myself away, thinking it was a monster. But it's not a monster, Chloe, it's just strength. And it's yours too, by blood. We are all the sum of our pasts. The sacrifices we make for love are noble, but we should never sacrifice the core of who we are. The very things we hide, the scars we cover, the battles we never speak of, they are not our shame. They are our armor. They are the quiet fire that keeps us safe in the dark. That day, a gang of boys learned not to underestimate an old woman. And my daughter learned that the mother she thought was simple and embarrassing was, in fact, a storm in human form. And most importantly, I learned that it's never too late to welcome the warrior within back home.